Go.
I'm standing next to the grave of General James Longstreet, the Corps Commander of the Army of Northern Virginia's 1st Corps. He was probably the 3rd greatest general of the Confederates in the Civil War, behind Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. Longstreet liked to go by the name of Pete instead of James, and he was called my old warhorse by Lee, and Lee also called him his most trustworthy general after the death of Stonewall Jackson. What is noteworthy to me about Longstreet that I think applies to today is his love of community and his love of his own people. When the Civil War began and the states began to secede in 1861, Longstreet made the determination that he could not fight against his own people, even though he had spent over 2 decades in the Army. Longstreet had an understanding of America that it is your local community that begins first and then your nation second. Longstreet, I think, had a very difficult time fighting the Civil War. For a while, he did not want to fight against his own soldiers that he himself had commanded. He understood that the cause of the Confederacy was right, not in upholding slavery, but in permitting each state the right to determine its own destiny outside of the influence and the power of the federal government. When the Civil War was over, Longstreet decided to go into business himself, having been a very dear friend to Ulysses S. Grant. And over the years, he wrote his memoirs that got him in a lot of trouble because he blamed Lee for what happened at Gettysburg in the 3rd day, known as Pickett's Charge. But the one thing you can say about old Pete is that he was faithful to his soldiers, because later in life, at a reunion for the Army of Northern Virginia, old Pete showed up again in full uniform to greet his soldiers, the young men that fought for him, that fought in the Army of Northern Virginia for the Confederacy. And he went down in history, in my view, as one of the greatest strategic thinkers in the Confederacy, and understood the power of the strategic defensive. So, being here with old Pete, I am moved and thankful that America has a place like this that could raise a man like James Longstreet.